Well, today we have Marion and Latoya Faustin. I hope that's pronounced correctly. From
Yes.
She Built This City. And I'm so excited to have you guys on the podcast. And, I have to preempt this. We talked a little bit earlier, is that I had heard you guys on the, do a little shout out for the Builder Nuggets podcast.
Okay.
With Dwayne Johns and Dave Young, and I tell you, I heard the podcast, and I was absolutely moved to what you guys are doing with She Built This City, and I just said to myself, now here's two people that I have to get on the podcast to celebrate the living daylights of what are you guys doing to better the pond. So I have to say, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
You are very welcome. So before we jump into the questions, can one of you please tell me a little bit about She Built This City?
That'll be me.
Okay, Latoya, it's all you.
So She Built This City is a nonprofit organization housed in Charlotte, North Carolina. We are focused on igniting interest in building pathways to construction and the maker trades for youth, women, and marginalized communities. I like to say that we are a workforce development organization that understands that career decisions are made early. Therefore, we start early, as young as 7 years old, with hands-on opportunities to expose young people to the people and the process of building and making our place, our spaces and our places beautiful. We start at 7, we go through middle and high school with more career focused, and then we culminate in adult training for both craft trades training in the pre-apprenticeship space, all the way up through employment, where we hire women as apprentices to come learn facilities maintenance through our 2-year apprenticeship program.
I think that is absolutely amazing. So what age or what grade do you start with this program?
We started as young as 7, and we have a curriculum of 30 plus builds where they'll make wind chimes, they'll make cell phone holders, magazine racks, all within like the arts and crafts world, but with a spin in that they use tools. They use tools, and when they're 12, they use power tools. And so when they're doing the wire sun catcher, they're learning the principles of wire bending with the same tools that an electrician would use. When they're doing our water challenge, they're learning the same principle of water flow and connecting fittings that a plumber would use. And so we're trying to ensure that they are both aware of the slight minutia of the trade, but just enough to let them know that the trade exists. And if you enjoyed this kind of activity, there could be a career for you in this space.
And now, is this within the school system itself, or is this an extracurricular program through the education system?
Right now, it is extracurricular. Warren, one of the things that makes She Built the City's story unique is that we were launched during the pandemic. And so schools were closed. So I think on paper, it was intended that we would be a part of schools. We would be a push-in service to schools to support and supplement curriculum there. But when we got up and running, schools weren't an option. So we became a community support organization. So we went to your community resource organizations, like for instance, here where we are, our Parks and Rec department that has the rec centers around the city, being able to provide summer camps and winter break camps for our local YMCA organizations. And so we started as almost a community support service, and we are now just going into the schools within the last year to be able to provide in-school support services.
Oh, that's fantastic. And out of interest sake, what's been the uptake so far with, especially I'm really interested in the younger students that are getting involved in this, and how what's been the uptake and how well has this been received?
It's been extremely well received. I think is a perfect storm of things. Mentioning, the shutdown here in the States, the definition of what is an essential worker, changed, and what it meant to have a job that kept you employed regardless of what was going on around you. And construction was one of those spaces. With that in mind, you have parents as well as educators minds open to a construction space that may have previously been closed. They weren't really considering that as a path. Mm-hmm. You also had young people who were considering college, and college was closed. Colleges, I can't really go, and if they valued the hands-on application of learning, apprenticeships became a space where they wanted to explore. So big picture, we saw a shift in awareness and acceptance, of what some people considered an antiquated space. Mm-hmm. For our young people, as they are now being exposed, we see great interest and desire to continue exploration in the trade. So whether it's, I never knew this existed, or I only saw people on the side of the road, and that was all of construction that I knew. That is a noble part of construction, but that's not all of construction. So exposing them to more paths within the trades has sparked lots of interest. And so I want to say Mary, you have to help me with the numbers. We're closing in on over 2,000 served this year.
Oh, wow.
Both youth and community members with our volunteer space. And we are, we're not a wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, a one-time service. We're repeat customers. We have lots of repeat customers, organizations wanting us to come back multiple times year after year because their youth really enjoy it.
What impact have you seen on youth? And I asked this question out of really interest because as we saw with the pandemic, and without having school, and there was a lot of, we saw, it's not depressing, but there was a lot of like teen suicide, and there was a lot of mental health issues and those kind of things that were happening in the pandemic. And I'm really fascinated to see that with what you're doing and helping a youth, number one, a female, move into that construction space, who they would naturally draw to it, and you're giving them the encouragement, you're giving them the opportunity, you're giving them all the tools for success, and that must be unbelievably rewarding to watch somebody go from maybe I don't know what I want to do, and heading down maybe a road of depression into wow, like I believe in myself, and actually gaining their confidence and finding a path towards a career that they may never even considered before. That must be remarkable.
I'll speak a little bit to this and I'll pass it over to Marion. I've hogged the mic way too much. Absolutely, Warren. I think what we're seeing, I'm gonna take a couple of steps back and then I'm gonna come back forward to the present conversation. For many generations, mine included, there was this push for college. 4-year college is the only way to success.
Right.
You have to have that bachelor's degree or else.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's, I would say, 1 to 2 generations of individuals who were raised in that. And with that push, the trades were taken out of the schools as a way of gainful employment and upward mobility for many populations. And so what we're seeing now is a generation that's in debt, not doing what that 4-year degree prepared them for, and not able to really advance as they thought, as they were promised, like their parents did. What we're seeing now is a generation of individuals who cannot afford to own a home, like their parents did, who made their money from the trades. And so we're having a reawakening of maybe that wasn't the right path. It is good for some people, but it is not the blanket statement of this is the path for everyone, of success and ultimately happiness. During the pandemic, one thing we saw, I'm gonna get back to you, but we saw a lot of corporate individuals leaving their corporate jobs and going to pursue the trades because they were tired of the day in, day out of what corporate America meant. They wanted to be outside. They wanted the flexibility. They wanted the entrepreneurial pathway that the trades provides. So what we're seeing now is a group of young people who might have thought or realized, I don't like school, like straight up, I don't like school. Going another 4 years is out of the question. What are my options? And what they're now seeing is I could actually make as much, if not more, than someone with a 4-year degree through a pathway of the trades. An electrician here makes on average $80,000 a year. We have plumbers making $55,000, $65,000 a year without that 4-year degree. And so we're just having a rebirth of awareness that good life can come in multiple ways. There's not just one path. This path has been excluded and in some ways demonized as, too hard, that was hard labor. That's not what you want to do. You don't want to work with your hands. And people say, actually, yes, I do. I want to work with my hands. Because it does provide a sense of joy and fulfillment that being behind a desk may not provide for everyone.
Absolutely. Marion, you want to jump in on this while the water's warm?
Yeah, I think I'm going back to Warren, our introduction conversation around learning styles and how to see success in young people, that, you know, these how school has been taught and unfortunately continues to be taught isn't the correct way for everybody to learn. And like Latoya said, with the schools and not just like administration, but like the parents and guidance counselors and them kind of reopening their eyes to these alternative pathways for these young people. It's really showing them like, hey, you're not like the dumb kid, you know, you just enjoy this type of learning style. You learn better through hands-on experiences, and you're proving and you're showing that you could see really strong success in an alternative career path that is, like Latoya said, not going into college. And so seeing the school system really starting again to support this thought process and this pathway is really exciting. I mean, we had the U.S. Department of Labor, the Women's Bureau, reach out to us to review a PowerPoint for them all about apprenticeships. And the whole mission of this presentation that they were putting together was, we're going to go to schools, we're going to talk to schools about the apprenticeship pathways, and then teach teachers and administration how to then talk to students about it, so that they are having the right kinds of conversations, and that they're understanding that there's lots of different pathways and opportunities. Because I just feel like if the U.S. Department of Labor is going, hey, college isn't for everybody, like there's this big realization happening, and we want students to be really excited about it. And one story really comes to mind when we talk about young people being excited about the trades is we did a program in conjunction with a high school here called Audrey Kell High School. And it was an after school program called Ignite, because their school mascot is the Knights, right? Like, and so it was a group for young girls of color, and it was like leadership professional development, right? Well, they had essentially this assignment, right, project, where it was She Built This City, some local artists in conjunction with the Humane Society of Charlotte, and these girls from start to finish learned about project management, landscape architecture, and the construction trades through designing animal-shaped bike racks for the Humane Society, right? So they literally from scratch into like design CAD systems, like what materials are we going to use? How are we going to cost estimate this out? How are we going to get it installed? Like the whole shebang from start to finish, which these bike racks are now installed at the new Humane Society, and they're super cool. But there was one gal that we invited to our annual luncheon. One girl, I say gal, young high school student, who blew us all away with her public speaking abilities, but she got up on this stage in front of 200 some odd people at our luncheon. And it was like, what she said that day was almost like the epitome of success. I think in one lane of what we do was, she was like, I didn't know that I could be an engineer. I didn't know I could be a project manager. I did not know that I could be an architect until I did this project in this club with She Built This City. And it was like, that is I mean, that's what we want to do. We want to show these young girls that there's all these opportunities out there for them. So it was really exciting.
That is a great story. And I just want to jump in here on this before I move forward. And, you know, it's something when we had Marion and you and I had talked earlier, and I said, you know, in the work that I do of working with people and instincts, and one of the things that we measure within the instinctive realm is we call it implementer, and it's basically how people work with space intangibles. And so there's people who, what I call shorter of a small amount of mental energy, or their problem solving strategy is they're great visionaries. They can imagine in their mind what they be. They don't need to see it to believe it. They want to envision or conceptualize things. And as we go up this ladder, and the amount of mental energy goes into needing to touch it, feel it, see it, build it, experience it, and it's actually tied to the senses in the human brain, and it's a part of the brain that does not change, and the research shows that. So it's interesting, and I have these interesting conversations with leaders across North America when I speak to, and if I find a female who has this large amount of long mental energy and implement her, and I say, when you grow up, how often were you called a tomboy? And they say, oh, absolutely. And I say, well, it's really interesting. Yeah, because I was always a tomboy growing up. I said, well, here's the funny thing. You were never a tomboy. They don't exist. There is no such thing. And it's this label, and I find it fascinating, this label that we've given women who actually want to be out there and experience the world in a physical, tangible way. And so whenever I go into organizations or companies or speaking to groups, I say, if you find these women who are natural, they want to build, they want to fabricate, they want to manufacture, they want to get out there in the world, so hire them. Like, jump at the opportunity, get them, and hang on to them, and praise the living daylights out of them, because it is such huge service. And and I go back a little bit to when I was growing up. Is number one in the it was I hate to say this, but there was a label as the dumb kids went to shop class, right? Because they would never make it anywhere else. I mean, it's just so, when you look back, it's just so ridiculous. And number two is that if you were a girl who went to shop class, well, I mean, that was just unheard of, right? And you look at it now, what you guys are trying to do and trying to serve that community. So I think it's absolutely fabulous. So I just do want to get this little rant out, that the fact is that there is no such thing as a tomboy. And it's and that's the community that you're serving, and I applaud you for the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you, Warren.
So now this is going to be fun, because as I said earlier, this is the first time I've actually had two people on the Pondcast here. So I'm going to try to be a good steward of time, but I'm fascinated of what got you to the point you are now within She Built This City. So here's my question. We're going to do this one at a time, and we will be a good steward of time. But I'm going to start with Latoya. So Latoya, what got you from being a gosling, and I mean a gosling, you're little, right, to leaving the nest to what you're doing now? What is your backstory there, Latoya?
I like that. When I was a young gosling, Warren, what got me out of the nest? I will do this quickly. I born and raised in Greensboro, North Carolina, raised by a single mother. And I decided to pursue higher education. I wanted to, at the time, be what I was calling a social justice lawyer. Like, I wanted to go fight the cause for the people. Along my way of studying, I took a passion, I developed a passion for native Spanish-speaking communities. I saw a lot of injustices happening for the Latinx population that were similar to that of African-American populations. And so I took great pride in being able to learn Spanish language and culture. And with that, I joined an organization called Teach for America, and moved to the border of Texas and Mexico and taught high school English for 3 years. It was there that my heart for community development was born. Up until that point, I thought that education was the answer to any and everything. It was just about access to education. You get them good access to good education, changes everything. It was there that my eyes were opened that was very much not true. And it was only a drop in the bucket of what was actually needed to truly see advancement in society. If my students outside of my classroom did not have access to good paying jobs, they did not have access to a place that they could afford to live with that living wage, they didn't have access to healthy, affordable foods, literally nothing I did inside the four walls of a classroom as their English teacher was going to change anything. And so I left the classroom in pursuit of the answer. I didn't know. I literally wrote my graduate essay on a nonprofit that did this, and this. I didn't know what it was. I just knew that my students needed more, and that more needed to come around the schools to support them on pathways outside of poverty. That question mark of what the answer was has led me to a number of organizations within the nonprofit sphere. I was most recently with an organization called Citizen Schools. They brought community volunteers into the classroom to be able to expose young people to what we call the social capital. So the people in these careers that would then help you know there was a pathway for you outside. So just like educational outcomes are sometimes determined by where you live, if you are a young person who is born into a family that has lawyers and doctors and, in our case, construction workers, then you know that's the path. Mm-hmm. If you're a young person who is not born into that family or that neighborhood, you don't have the benefit of getting those connections. It sets you back into your understanding of what's possible. So Citizen Schools tried to solve that. I thought that was the answer. I thought that's why I had left the classroom. This is the organization that I've been looking for, until I realized the students could not access those access to those people if they couldn't come to school because they were homeless, or they didn't have transportation, or mom and dad lost their job. And so, and they had to switch school districts. And so then my eyes were awoken to the need for community supports. Community development is what I then began to pursue. I left the classroom and education proper completely, and began to search for what outside of the classroom supports look like. And I landed in a space of understanding that workforce development, access to good paying jobs for people who may not want to go or able to go to 4 years of college, was that space. And I found construction to be an untapped resource for communities of color and disenfranchised communities, as well as women. Huge, I'm saying it around about, construction is a bunch of old white men that have been benefiting from this lucrative career almost exclusively for generations.
True.
And I'm sitting here like, what could this single mother do in this space to advance her and her family? People say that women don't like dirty jobs. You know what's the dirtiest job of all? A mom, a CNA, certified nursing assistant that has to change bedpans. Yeah. We're not unfamiliar to hard, long hours, dirty work, being on your feet. We just haven't had access to this pathway that pays better to do all those things. And so when I came across She Built the City, I fell in love with the mission of the organization. Shortly after its founding, in the midst of the pandemic, came on as first the chief operating officer and then the executive director to take it to the next level.
Wow. So that's amazing.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. That's okay. But I have a question for you. Yeah, that came to mind. Now this might be a tough question. We'll see. I'm going to hit you with it. All right, you ready?
I'm ready. So
you said that you came from had a single mom, right? That's where you grew up as a young gosling. So here's my question to you. What is the greatest lesson that your mother taught you growing up?
The greatest lesson that my mother taught me. I think oftentimes people say parenting is both what's taught and what's caught. You know, we learn more from what is caught than what's directly taught to us. And I would say what I caught from my mother is the ability to make it happen for me as her child. She was a single mother. I was an only child. When I tell you, Warren, I was involved in everything. I know the basics of basketball fundamentals. I was a cheerleader. I took bowling. I took swimming. I took anything and everything that might have been of interest to me. She gave me the opportunity to be exposed to that. Because of that, I was unafraid to try new things. I was unafraid to venture into places that did not look like me, so I could see if there's something that I liked. That is both extremely relevant to what I do now, because here I am, and you'll hear from Marion, I am leading a construction organization with no background in construction. And I want to say it's that ability to learn quickly, try new things. I don't have to be the smartest person in the room. I just need to bring all the smart people together. Mm-hmm. And together we can move mountains as an organization. And so I think it's that what she opened up to me is a world of new things that took away any fear of trying new things throughout my upbringing, that I then was able to translate to different career changes.
Yeah, and that's interesting. I mean, I love your line, "What's taught or what's caught," and that's a keeper right there. But no, I find that fascinating just in that story, because everything that your mother taught you is you're turning around and you're actually applying back in your life right now for others, and so you're keeping your mother's lessons alive through others. So well done.
Absolutely, thank you. Thank you.
So Marion, what about you? What got you from being a young gosling to leaving the nest to where you are now?
Okay, well, I kind of a similar situation, and that was also raised by a single mother, actually on the West Coast in a small town outside of Las Vegas. That probably nobody's ever heard of. It's called Pahrump. And so
nope.
Nope, see, exactly. So usually I just say I'm from Las Vegas. But lots of challenges, lots of obstacles that my mother faced in raising my brother and I. And we received a lot of help from nonprofit organizations. So like believe it or not, we've had 3 house fires in my lifetime. So like the American Red Cross really helped us often, putting us in places. We were homeless a couple of different times, living in shelters, women's shelters. Eventually, my mom moved us to Iowa, which was a far stretch from the state of Nevada. But stability then occurred when we were actually gifted a home from Habitat for Humanity. So that is where I grew up the latter half of my teenage years, and of the home that my mother still lives in today. And as I of course wanted to go to college, because like Latoya said, that's where success lied, right? Mm-hmm. And I wanted to be, and especially in the situation that I grew up in, I was like, that is my only way to prove my worth, was to like go get an education and be extremely successful in a career. So went off, got my degree, actually in Spanish, and wanted to be a Spanish teacher. And and then when I got out of school, I realized like that I was just working a customer service job. And really thinking about what I wanted to do, I started volunteering with a child advocacy program called CASA, where you're just like a third-party child advocate. I'm kind of not quite a guardian ad litem, but similar situation. And I loved volunteering. And I was like, how can I translate this into the work that I do every day? And really thinking about like giving back, and I don't know, I guess paying back for all the organizations that helped our family growing up. And so I was like, I'm going to go back to school. So went and got my graduate degree in public administration and nonprofit management, with the hopes and dreams of working for a nonprofit organization. I didn't know what my passion was. I didn't know, did I want to save all the puppies, or did I want to save all the children? I didn't know. I just wanted to do something that felt meaningful. And then it didn't happen. I graduated from UNLV and just needed a job, needed to pay rent. I was waiting tables. I was like, I'm ready to be a grown-up. And my mother worked in the window and door industry for a company called Pella. And she was like, just come work with me. I know it's not what you want to do, but at least you'll have a job. And I was like, okay. So that's what I did. That's what I did. And then it just kind of snowballed from there. Started off in sales, went to a training position, moved to like a district staff role, and then eventually worked for a window and door installation company, running crews to install windows and doors. So like just stayed in this land of home improvement, exterior improvement. And that is when I was introduced to Latoya. And it was like, hey, your company, does, construction work. She wants to train women in construction work. Maybe you two can partner, and you can train women to install windows and doors. And I was like, wonderful, love it. Let's do that. Met her, got more involved with the organization, was a part of the advisory council for a short time before I was like, Latoya, I love you and I love She Built This City. What do I got to do? And so she agreed to interview me. And so that I started off in a part-time capacity, and as the corporate partnership coordinator, just helping to build relationships and really thinking about what is that future look like as far as sponsorships and fundraising and things like that. And then eventually came on full-time earlier this year. So this role really just kind of meshed my two worlds. Like realized without realizing it, like, oh, this is what I should be doing. Like taking what I know, which is the construction industry, and then using my now education. So I'm one of the lucky ones that is using my degree, and learning this whole new world really for me in my career of the nonprofit land, but meshing my two lives together. So it's been absolutely phenomenal that I have this opportunity. So yeah, that's my story.
And that's an excellent story that it is. So so now, because I put Latoya on the spot, you're going to be a little less on the spot, but what was the greatest lesson that your mother taught you?
Probably resilience, in that even though things look really dark and meek and like things aren't going to get better, they will. Like my mother and I tell each other all the time, no matter what, it's going to be okay. Like no matter how crummy you feel, no matter what terrible situation is happening, whether you made a poor decision or outside factors are weighing in on what's happening in your life, like all the time, my mom and I like hype each other up today as adults, like everything will be okay. The outcome is going to be great, no matter how bad you feel currently in the moment. I think we had so many lows in my life as a child that I very distinctly remember a brief time I was like in 7th grade when I was like, Mom, I'm a loser. And she's like, why would you ever say that? And I was like, well, look at our lives. Like we're homeless. Like we were literally living at like somebody's house in their basement. And she was like, well, that doesn't matter. That doesn't make you, that's like not a reflection of you. It's just our circumstance and our situation that is going to get better. And I was like, you know what? You're right. Did I say that at 7th grade? I didn't tell her she was right, but I've carried that with me. So that I just know like everything is going to be okay no matter what.
I love it. Now, which I agree with you, by the way. And both of you, now looking back to when you were young, did you ever in a million years look to see that you would be in the construction industry today?
No.
No.
Absolutely. I'm shaking my head like no.
So I love both your backstories. It's really fascinating if you see how they both weave together. That is really interesting. So and in both Spanish and want to educate and help others. I mean, there's like a match made in heaven. So I think we should call it, Ella construyó esta ciudad.
Oh,
thank you.
Yeah, sí.
Lo
dice ella. Sí.
So, all right. So now we're going to dive a little bit deeper into this. And either one of you can sort of pipe into this. Is what is the biggest thing that's ever happened to you that ruffled your feathers? And I know, Marion, you kind of led into this, right? What's the biggest thing that happened to you that ruffled your feathers, and how did you respond to it?
What do you mean by ruffled feathers? You mean
the biggest impact that someone's had on you that's really pushed you, or it's ticked you off, or it's really force you to actually get way out of your comfort zone?
Oh my goodness. I'm mad every day, Warren. I'm just gonna pick one. I'm always mad about something.
Don't say that. You're not mad about something every day. Latoya is very aware. She is a very aware person, and she sees things that most people don't see. And so when she sees those things and she brings them to attention, it goes, yeah, And then, so she describes it as being mad. I wouldn't say she's mad. She is standing up and she uses her voice to advocate for herself and for us and for our participants and for women and for girls and for her community. And so it's advocating, I think, is the better word, Latoya.
Latoya is a powerhouse. So now, Marion, that you jumped in on that, Latoya, it is now your turn to flip the roles, and you actually get to actually do the same thing back to Marion. Let's see where this goes.
I love it. I love. There's a phrase that I use. I need to seal it on our team. I call them beautiful unicorns. We have these amazing individuals that find She Built This City who have these beautifully unique backgrounds. And Marion was one of my first beautiful unicorns that came with this background in nonprofit, a desire to serve, interest in understanding in sales and in the windows and doors space. And what I love that Marion brings, and I would say that ruffles her feathers. What ruffles Marion's feathers? Marion's feathers are ruffled when I put too much on the plate for us to digest as an organization. It's one of those things where she is the needed sense of caution. She is the needed sense of pace, capacity, and well-being of our team that I believe every visionary needs by their side. And I think that she brings that to She Built This City very effortlessly. She also takes on the world. Marion is like, I always heard that when you have someone who plays sports, maybe a quarterback, you're looking for the person that when, things are, the score is down and there's like that one play that needs to be made, that person is saying, give me the ball, coach. Give me the ball. I'll do it. And Marion is that person for our team. I don't care what it is. Marion, if there's a need, Marion's going to feel it, whether she is the right person to feel it or not. She's the give me the ball, coach. Let's make this happen. I will do whatever it takes to see our team succeed. And so I think when we think about what ruffles her feathers, it is seeing a teammate in need and being able to do anything that she can to relieve that overwhelming nature that a person may have, and she will do it with everything that she has to make it happen for the team.
Sounds like she learned resilience along the way.
Absolutely.
Interesting. So now, let's move into the sort of the team aspect, because whether it's going to be your team of She Built This City, or the broader picture of all the women that you serve. So we can expand this out if we want. But going into my metaphor, the geese do fly 71% further and faster when flying in a V formation. And so what happens when they do that? They're all, of course, relying on one another. I'm not sure how many Canadian geese you guys have down in Carolina, but I'm sure they probably make their way. It's warmer than here. Trust me. So what do you think the secret is to getting a team flying in the V formation? What is the secret that you guys have found that you could teach others to help people fly in the V formation?
I will. So what we do for women in the construction space, Latoya said it earlier, the space that they are entering into as women, particularly women of color, they are going to be potentially the sole person on that team that looks like them, right? And so what we are doing at She Built This City is not just, here's how to use a hammer, here's how to use a drill, here's how to learn fractions and read a tape measure. Those are hard skills that are absolutely needed to enter into the construction trades. But what we're doing is creating a group of women, a network of women, a cohort of women who can then rely on each other. And when you talk about that V, they are creating that V amongst each other, because this group mentality that they absolutely at this point have to go into this, to be a force in this industry, to make space in this industry for themselves and to advocate for each other and help each other is absolutely necessary. And so that's what we're aiming to do, is not just like, hey, let's help you get a job, but hey, let's bring you in to our group, to our circle, to our network, and let's grow together and succeed together. So Latoya, I know, like, you brought it up at the graduation. Well, I would say our post-meeting graduation, our meeting after the graduation, about what you talked about. And I think that was absolutely like an aha moment for our whole team. When Latoya said this, I was like, oh, yes, that's what we're doing. So I'm going to let you tell them what you said.
Now, Marion, you know I don't remember what I said.
Oh, you did. She said that we should all be proud of ourselves for what we accomplished, because it's not just graduating these women. So we had graduation, Warren, Thursday night. So less than a week ago. We graduated 8 women from our most recent plumbing cohort. They, spent 12 weeks in the workshop learning all the skills to become plumbers. But what was the really cool thing was we had 3 prior graduates from our previous cohorts come and support these women during their own graduation. So these women who are literally working, like 2 of them are electricians, 1 is a carpenter, these women that came, the alumni. When I talked to them at graduation, they're working long, hard hours, busting their tushies day in and day out to care for their families. And it was a Thursday night at 6 p.m. when this graduation was held, and they took the time to show up and support these new graduates and what they were doing, to then mingle with them, give them advice. One got up. Latoya puts everybody on the spot. You want to come up and say a few words at graduation? And she got up there, and, just hearing from, they can hear from me, they can hear from Latoya, they can hear from our sponsors, what have you. But to hear somebody who, I went through this program, I graduated, and now this is what I'm doing, speaks volumes to inspire these future women. So that's what you were talking about, Latoya. You're talking about the success of us building this network. Great. And at the moment, I didn't realize how exciting it was until you expressed it.
Yeah, no, thank you, Marion. I'm like, I don't know what I said. I'm saying all kinds of stuff. But I absolutely love how you applied the metaphor of the geese flying in the V shape. I'm a fan of the Mighty Ducks movie, Warren.
Excellent. You get bonus points for that.
Yes. And so that V-shaped formation in multiple ways. And I think my brain is moving so fast, because that analogy is so appropriate for not only how we lead She Built the City, but what we're doing for the women in the industry, is that you don't have to do this alone. We are women in the space, specifically women of color in the space, have been alone for so long. They sort of taken it as like, you're going to be, if I want to pursue this career that is outside of the norm, I'm going to be by myself. What we're trying to build is the momentum of like, actually, no, you aren't. Just go get in line behind Kim. Like, Kim is already there. She is leading the way for you. She is she's cutting through the wind so that you can go there much faster. Mm-hmm. And we will all get there much faster if we all get in line together. It's been so much of an independent thing for women in this space because they didn't have anyone else to depend on. We're creating that force. So that all you need to do now is get in line, get behind your sister, and then make space for the one behind you. And when it's time for you to lead, you are not afraid to be up at the front because you've seen others go before you, and to break off into the next beat, to go in a different direction, because we are starting a movement. It is not just an individual in the career. We are looking to change the industry. We're building up our wins to have our women be strong. But please know, and we've said this to our partners, we're also coming after industry standards. Now that our women are here and we're growing this next generation of pipeline industry, you have responsibilities. What is your maternity leave like? Do you have a nursing mother's room? What is your child care policies? Because these women are coming, and they're coming as the full entity of what it means to be a woman. She's bringing all that with her, and she shouldn't have to leave that at the door to join your company.
Right.
So now that we're coming, are you ready for us? This is how you become ready for us, to ensure that it is not just a drop in the bucket. We want it to be an industry change. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wholeheartedly agree with you. And I just want to add one piece, and you already kind of led into it, but I think it's really important to mention. And, as we talk about the V formation, and, and when geese fly, the lead goose never stays the lead goose, right? They're always rotating, which means that everyone in that flock is a leader. Every single one is a leader. And that's really important to notice, that, as you said, as you start to bring people up and to bring the women up with the other, that get support, and you're supporting them, right? And you're giving them the opportunity to lead. And I think that's really powerful stuff.
Thank
you, Warren.
So I know you kind of led into this, but I want to break this down as sort of some highlights, some maybe some big wins, and I said, my question is, what are you doing right now to better the pond, and what ripples are you creating, and to be a good steward of time. I'm thinking, what are some of the big highlights, or some of the big wins that you've had with She Built This City? Again, even from that, what ripples are you creating outside of that as you plop the pebble in the pond?
Is that one's on me?
It is now.
Thank you for that. I also want to thank Marion. We move so fast, and I am by nature an achiever. I don't take time to celebrate often. I'm always on to the next. Like, what's next? I appreciate Marion capturing and feeling and hearing the moment of celebration that we had last week, and because I was like, what did I say? On to the next. We got invoices to send. That's what my brain is like. I have no idea what happened last week. So no, thank you, Marion, for honoring that space that was created for our ladies last week. What ripples are we creating? I think we're creating so many. Not only the women that Marion described, our 2 electrician students and our 1 carpentry student, they knew nothing about the trades before they entered this program in January of last year. And now they are first-year apprentices, all of them, in their desired trade. That is a ripple, not only for their families, for that company. Many of them are the only women still on their site, for their families. So I think of each individual woman that will graduate from our program, that they are going to create their own ripple effect in their own side. I wouldn't say their own ponds, but they're in their own side of the lake. They're going to be creating those ripples that will hopefully impact their generation, legacy building for their families. There's a statistic that says when you help bring 1 woman out of poverty, she's going to bring 6 people with her. Whether that's a cousin, aunt, uncle, grandchild, someone, she's going to bring 6 people with her. And so I think about the long lasting ripples that if we do nothing else, if we shut the doors tomorrow, those women's lives are forever changed, and the lives of the people that they come in touch with are also going to be changed because of that experience. So I think that's one space. You think about the young people that we get to impact. When I say young, I mean under 18. So that level of programming of that person who built a toolbox this summer for the first time, that now realizes, while I have a hard time focusing in school, I did not have the first time that they get to experience that learning came easy to me for the first time. And maybe there's a space where I can explore, where learning is fun for me, and that I can apply all the things that I love, and I could potentially do that as my job. My outlook for the future is changing. That is a ripple that we're creating. One of the ripples that I talk about with Marion that I don't think we haven't told this story is we are fortunate that we've just had 2 team members on She Built the City come back from maternity leave. As a 3-year-old nonprofit, we were able to offer a full paid 8-week maternity leave to 2 of our own team members. That is a ripple effect for a woman who's chosen this career, who doesn't have to sacrifice family to be in the career of her choice. And so I think that's a story we haven't told yet. And we're happy that they're both back now. But we were even able to offer that. That is a ripple of expectations that we want to set. That's only the beginning. If we're going to be a women-led, women-serving organization, we have to set the standard high of what does it mean to work in this type of environment, and what we want our women to be able to advocate for and have in their future. So those are just a few ripples. Marion, what ripples do you see us making?
So I just said this the other day, actually. I think we were together, actually. We aren't just making ripples, Warren. We're trying to make waves. And something that with this space, we hear all the time, oh my God, what you're doing is so amazing. We need more women in the trades. We need this. And we talk to construction companies and they're like, we want to hire more women. We know that they're smarter. We know that they're more detail oriented. We know that women are all these things. We want them on our teams. And then I step back and I go, but why aren't you? Why are you coming to us? Like, and so we are here to be disruptive, plain and simple. We are disrupting the industry to make a change and break these systemic patterns, these stigmas. Like you said, Warren, like you were labeled as a tomboy if you wanted to work with your hands as a girl, right? Like breaking that stigma, breaking the stigma that it's not surprising. If our graduate Kim walked up to somebody on the street and said, I'm an electrician, I don't want that person to go, whoa, oh my God, really? Like that should not be the reaction. Because if Kim walked up to that same person and said, I'm a teacher, cool, yeah, normal, right? So like changing our thought process, changing it across the board is what we're aiming to do. And that is not just, that has to be a wave. Like it has to be a wave that crashes down on people so that they understand that it is completely normal for a woman to be in the construction industry. And it should not be a shock and awe situation. And like Latoya said, we have to be disruptive, not just to break that stigma of reaction, not of the normal thinking, but then also changing how these companies are interacting with these women, right? Are they providing the necessary, benefits to these women? Are they providing the things that you need just on the day-to-day job site? Are they providing a culture that's accepting of them? Like, we don't want these women to have to constantly push back. Yes, we want them to use their voice and advocate for themselves 100%. But if you have to go to work and fight for your place every day because your coworkers don't accept you, that's exhausting. And it shouldn't be like that. And unfortunately, that's what a lot of women are facing when they come into the construction industry, is it's exhausting. So like from a retention standpoint, like, what are you doing as a company to make sure that's not happening? And so that's where just having conversations like this and like you allowing us this platform is what we want to continue to do so we can disrupt the industry.
You know, I have to say, Marion, I love disruption. I love disruption. So
Couldn't tell.
Right. So I'm right in there with you. Oh, we're gonna disrupt. That's fantastic. I love that thought process, and I love that. You know what I find interesting, what you just said. I think it's fascinating to me is we've got to this point where, yes, and you said if a woman says, I'm an electrician, like, oh, really? Like, that almost sounds like a surprise. Or a woman has to go into work onto a job site, whatever that is, in the trade, and have to be on the defensive to try to protect their position. Like, where did we go so wrong? Right? This is a person. It's a human. I don't care if you're Hispanic. I don't care if you're Black. I don't care if you're white. I don't care if you're female. It is a human being who has a serious talent to offer to make the world a better place. Where did we go so wrong with putting those little labels and things where people have to defend it? I find that just so absolutely fascinating. And, and what if you were a company that said, you know what? We're inclusive. We are a construction company, and leave it at that. And whether you have 50% women or 50% men or 25 or 25, what if you had 75% women and and 25% men? Who cares, right? What if you came up from that perspective?
What is it? There's a statistic that companies like literally. I did like a fun facts about women in construction social media post a while back. Literally, the higher percentage of women that work for a construction company, all of those companies make more money.
Yes.
Like across the board. If you have a higher percentage of women working in a construction company, you make more profit and revenue. Like plain and simple. Like
so hire so then why wouldn't you?
Right. Isn't that the point of a business, is to be successful?
Yeah. Diversity. This is diversity. Women is the focus of our organization, and as the change we are advocating for within the construction industry. But diversity in general is what will yield greater profit margins for the organization. And I think other industries have had to face this sooner. Construction is just the lagging in its understanding of this space. So yes, ultimately it is the profit margin, that anyone would want to see. It is the higher quality product that diversity brings. And I think where we have the vantage point that it isn't just about hiring the woman, though. It is about making a space for that woman to be successful and want to see her succeed and stay with your organization. I think that is the flip switch we want to make sure happens. Okay. Yes, hire more women, but don't just treat them like one of the guys. Like you hired a woman. Like and so what does that mean in making sure that you have an environment that is conducive for her to be successful? Because there are women already in the space. We do not deny or belittle or overlook the women who've already broken down walls and who've already made a path in space. But by far and large, the women that we talk to in the space, they almost had to become numb to the fact that they were the only woman in the space. It's like it was their reality. They accepted it as their reality and were okay with it. So they succeeded in the male-dominated structure and confines. What we're saying is to help it even more, see even more women to be more successful in the space. Construction, you're going to have to change. The women who were okay with that are there already. If you want more women, you got to change because they don't want to be there if it's going to be like that. So you're going to have to make some changes, but it will be worth those changes for the industry as a whole, but your bottom line as a corporation as well.
So, as we, as I talk about my metaphor with, geese flying in the V formation, I use nature as my metaphor in everything that I do. And one of the really interesting things about nature, and it's called the edge effect. And the edge effect in nature is, let's say, where the mountains meet the plains, where the tree line meets the prairies, where the shoreline meets the water, wherever there's two biodiversities has the greatest amount of potential. And if you watch what nature does, all animals will always go to the edge to feed and whatnot, because the fact is it has the greatest amount of potential at the edge. It's the greatest amount of biodiversity at the edge. And that's why, I try to teach organizations is if you go into your organization from a standpoint of creating the edge effect, where you create the greatest amount of biodiversity, you have the greatest amount of potential, which gives you the greatest result. And so that's why I love what you guys is you're helping create the edge effect. And if it happens in nature, why aren't we doing it in business?
I love that. I'm now incorporating that into what I say, Warren.
Well, I got your line. What caught us? Hey, we're switching lines here. So I'm trying to be a good steward of time. So I have one last question, and what is one lesson that you've learned along your way, Latoya, that you would share with an entrepreneur starting business today?
One lesson that I would share with an entrepreneur starting their business today. I say this to entrepreneurs, I say this to interns, I say this to young people starting. Can you still hear me? I'm sorry. I have a little, okay. Is you are an expert in something. You're an expert in something. Sometimes, specifically, I'm gonna speak to the woman who's listening. Women feel as if they need 100% qualifications to move forward, to go after that job, to bid on a client. You have to be the best. That isn't how business works, and that's not how men think. Men only have to have 40% qualifications, and they're going after it full throttle. So what I say is that you're already an expert in something. If that expert is being a middle child from Pella, wherever Pella is, Marion, I don't remember where Pella is. If that is what you are an expert in that, and that provides you with a life experience that will help sell your product to somebody. So like start from where you are an expert, then you move forward and learn on how to then take your product to the next level, whatever that product may be. So you have something now valuable to provide to society. Every individual does. Identify what that is, lean into it as you are learning other aspects to help your business succeed.
I love it. Fantastic.
Speaking from the woman who's leading a construction company with no construction experience.
Yes.
Say that.
Speaking from experience.
Same.
Marion, what is one lesson that you've learned along your path that you would share with an entrepreneur starting a business today?
I think that's why I said it earlier is finding the people to help you, because to be successful, you don't have to be the smartest person that knows everything. I think that's what we tend to think, is that you got to know whether a woman or not, right? And you're starting go after it. You have to know every single facet and be an expert in every single thing. You don't have to be successful. You find the person that knows the thing. So even in outside of She Built the City in my own business, right? I know windows and doors. My business partner knows like accounting. I don't know that, right? So like, that's how we work together. So it's finding the people that are there to support you and that can fill the gaps, that you don't have to worry about filling the gaps, and you can just be the best at what, like Latoya said, at what you're the best at.
Find your who's.
Yeah.
You want to find your who's. Excellent. Okay, and I have one last question for you that was not prepared for you. So this is going to be, so I'm going to put you right on the spot. So Marion, I'll start with you, right? So if you were standing on the top of a mountain and the whole world was intently listening to you, what would you say?
Oh, the sarcastic part of me would say so much. Reality is like literally what you make it. You choose your own reality every single day. I think that's what I'd say. I think we are so ungodly influenced by everybody else and everybody else's thoughts and what everybody else thinks, or what we think everybody else thinks. And we're all so just caught up in our heads. Like you make it, you make your reality and you go for it.
I love it. Latoya, you were standing on the top of a mountain and the whole world was intently listening to you. What would you say?
I would say lead from love. I think we can often lead from fear. We lead from judgment. We lead from such critical lenses. And nothing is going to be perfect. No one will be perfect, but I feel as if we all chose to lead from love, and I don't mean like lead a business. I mean, lead your family, lead your life, like, run towards things, not away from them. Mm-hmm. I think that would cause inner peace for most people. And I think that that would cause then conductive environments for everyone.
Sage advice. You're like the sage goose on the pond, Latoya. So I honestly and sincerely from my heart and with love, actually, I do want to thank the two of you for your time today. I want to thank you for sharing your stories. I want to thank you for creating the ripples that you're actually, it's not ripples, it is waves. You guys are creating some serious impact on the pond. And so I do thank you for your time and for everything that you do. Now, if any of my listeners want to go find you, where do they go to find you?
They can visit our website at www.shebuiltthiscity.org, where you can also find all of our social media. We're on all the cool social media platforms: Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. We're on all of those. So find us, She Built This City, and follow what we're doing.
Anything?
Our waves. Follow our waves.
Follow our waves, right? Just ride the wave, right? You created the wave and just got to ride it, like surf in behind it, right?
That's right.
Perfect. I love it. So your website, which is shebuiltthecity
.org.
.org. Okay,
Mhm.
shebuiltthecity.org, and then She Built This City is going to all the cool platforms versus the uncool ones.
Right. just proving that we are up to date. Got
and
this.
cool.
And cool.
Cool. All right, so there you have it, folks. We had a great time here today with Marion and Latoya, and this is Warren Berry, and I'm flocking off to take you beyond the pond to better the pond, because we're better together. Thank you, you two.
Thank you.